Are you kidding me? Horror games are scarier than horror movies. I don't care what anybody says. There's no film that is able to give you the feeling of absolute terror that freezes you in place like a horror game. The Exorcist? Yeah, right. The Conjuring? Pish posh applesauce. The Shining? Okay, buddy. These films are great, and they do a really good job of building tension and making you feel uneasy, and occasionally hitting you with a scare or something that causes you to jump in your seat. But nothing like games, and especially not in VR. Let me give you an example real quick. Resident Evil 7, on average, takes about 9.5 hours to beat. While playing in VR, I was probably at around where you should be an hour in, except it took me 5 hours to get to that point because of how scared I was. There were honestly times where I would just stand in the safe room, listening to the sound of thumping footsteps coming from behind the door, too scared to step out. That's what horror games are capable of. Movies can make you feel and make you think, but horror games can put you in the situation. You're there. You're living. You're making the actions. All those morons in movies that see the dark basement and go down like, haha, no problem here. Just, dark and weird death sounds. No big deal for me. But in a game, you stand in a dark hallway looking at a crack in the door and you're frozen. If I take one single step, anything is possible. And I just don't want a ghost or demon to kill me. Now, I'm not just saying that VR horror games are scary, though they are a level above normal horror games. But Visage, and even goofs like Five Nights at Freddy's are able to have you screaming into the night. And I don't mean that in a good way. Okay, let's say you're watching Signs. Mel Gibson thinks he sees something in the crops. He goes running out there. He's running. He's scared. You're tense. You're on the edge of your seat. You don't know what exactly is going to happen, and it makes you nervous. That tension rises and falls throughout a film, with moments of peace and moments of shock to help clear the tension in the air. Now, in a horror game, let's say Outlast 2, you're outside, you're in the crops, you're running, but this time it's you. You're running, not Mel Gibson. It's you. You're in control, and something crazy is after you. It's a completely different feeling. Some games can pull this off so well, and you are constantly in fear and constantly on edge. Others are really good at bringing the tension in the early game, but then giving you too many ways to deal with the horror that nothing is scary anymore. I'm kind of looking at you here, Resident Evil. When you can suplex a zombie, they just aren't scary anymore. Resident Evil 7? Oh man. Resident Evil 8? Looks terrifying, and I can't wait. Now, going back to horror films, there are different types of horror movies, just like how there are different types of horror games. Some are slashers, some are shock-filled, some are extremely tense, and some are all combined. With games, it's the same, but even when they're a little bit silly, it's still you. You're the one in those horrifying situations. You're not watching someone else being chased. You're being chased. You're not watching someone hide from an alien. You're hiding from an alien. The ghost isn't going to haunt them. It's haunting you. This fear is real, and it's why horror games are so popular, and also why those horror carnivals and extreme haunted houses are popping up everywhere now. People want to be part of that fear and experience fear with a safety net. They know nothing is going to actually happen to them, but in the moment, you forget, and the fear overtakes you, and you're living it. Over the past few years, it seems like horror games have had a massive surge in popularity, and this probably has to do with the fact that people love watching people play horror games. They love watching people scream in terror and laugh at their inability to progress in the game due to fear. These viewers are probably too afraid to play the games themselves, and honestly, I don't blame them. Phasmophobia, for example, a multiplayer horror game where you play as a paranormal investigator with your friends. The graphics are extremely outdated, which you think would change the level of fear you feel due to the lack of realism, but guess what? It doesn't hold back one bit. When you're separated from your friends and just alone in the dark in a haunted farmhouse, you're ready to cry or pee your pants.
Everybody my age pees their pants. It's the coolest.
I played in VR while my friends were playing traditional, and while they weren't as scared as I was, we were all screaming when we saw that fucking ghost. Okay, I'll admit, I was scared during the tutorial. The game's scary, alright? What do you want? That's another thing. I've never turned off a movie 10 minutes in because I was too scared. But I'll tell you, I've done it countless times in a game. Horror filmmakers really know how to build tension, and they know how to get you scared. And it would be awesome to see what they could do with a game studio behind them, making something worthwhile, kind of like how Silent Hills would have been. But also, it would be interesting to see what these game directors could do with a movie studio backing them out. Maybe we'd finally see a good Resident Evil movie. Either way, that feeling of true horror won't be there. It's not there unless you're living it, stuck in an everlasting hallway loop with the ghost of a dead woman waiting for you around every turn.